"85 years ago today, audiences were introduced to what Walt Disney always considered his masterpiece. His animated short, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, became the full-length feature Fantasia. And on November 13th, 1940, it premiered in New York at the Broadway Theater. The New York Times called it a creation so thoroughly delightful and exciting in its novelty that one's senses are captivated by it. One's imagination is deliciously inspired," end quote. Other critics agreed, dubbing it the movie of the month. The movie, though, didn't make it into Idaho until it debuted at the Rialto Theater in April of 1942. At last, they said, at regular prices at $2.20 a seat. However, the 2-hour and 5-minute movie was a financial disappointment at first. It was released during World War II, so global distribution was limited. Plus, because it was the first ever movie to use stereophonic sound, they called it Fantasound back then, most theaters had to be equipped with the proper speakers, all of which ate into the profits. The movie was re-released 5 times over the years, and then permanently in 1969, which just so happened to coincide with the psychedelic subculture, who referred to the movie as, quote, mind-expanding, as you can imagine. Unfortunately, Walt Disney didn't live long enough to see his masterpiece gain popularity. But if it wasn't for Walt's century-old connection to Idaho, Fantasia, or for that matter, Mickey Mouse, might never have materialized, as explained in today's 208 Redial. From the single star to the tip of the castle, you know when you've started watching a Disney-made movie. But did you know the man, Walt, and his wife started their lives together in North Idaho? Well, apparently a lot of people did.
The bits and pieces of it have always been out there, but it was such common knowledge, nobody thought it was special.
July 13th, 1925. Walt Disney said, "I do," to Spalding, Idaho-born Lillian Marie Bounds in Lewiston. However, it wasn't a traditional church ceremony. So where were they married?
They were actually married at her brother's home.
You see, Lewiston is pretty close to Lapwai, which is where Lillian grew up.
It was kind of a private wedding. They didn't have a big, it was just family and a few close friends.
But what brought Walt to the LC Valley? Well, the story goes like this.
She was a well-educated woman before she ever met him.
Lillian left Lewiston Business College after about a year in 1923, after her sister Hazel offered the promise of a job in Southern California.
Yeah, the studio. She got a job at the studio.
The Walt Disney Studio, for $15 a week to color frames of film. I'll let local Lewiston historian Steve Branting tell how Lillian took notice of Walt taking notice of her.
He had a new car, and he would offer to take the girls in the inking department, whoever was working there, he would give them a ride home. She soon started to realize that even though she lived closest to the studio, she was the last one to be dropped off. So they decided to get married, came back, took the train, came back to Lewiston, and got married at her brother's home.
That home at 918 3rd Street still stands and still looks almost identical to how it did then.
It's an old craftsman home, dates from, the early 20s. That's the neighborhood. It's 20s and 30s neighborhood.
Well, it didn't take long for Lillian to put her imprint into one of America's most iconic cartoons. She actually came up with the name Mickey.
He wanted to call it Mortimer. And she felt that was too old-fashioned. It just didn't have the flavor of being joyous. Mortimer is an old fogey name.
So what other Idaho influence can you find in the wonderful world of Disney? Remember that open? Well, forget about it.
To everyone who sees it says, that's got to be the Lewis Clark Valley.
Of course.
It's not.
What?
It's not. I've talked to the archives. They've talked to the people who put the films together. They put the introductions, the editors, and they say, it's just a mishmash of all that imagery of river and a valley and the beautiful scenery and a bridge. And it just coincidentally happens to look like it because they didn't live here. And when Lillian grew up here, the valley didn't look like that.
But you have to acknowledge that there's a similarity, though, right? The rivers and the...
A lot of people have looked at it and they want to see Lewiston, and that's okay.
But it's not true.
It wasn't done about Lewiston, no.